Welcome back, Star Wars fans, to another episode of Coruscant Radio Underground. We're here to talk about the first three episodes of Andor.
Yeah.
This is going to be a little different. I don't really like to. We've done. I mean, we've done the Rings of Power stuff, but I don't like to necessarily do especially with this much material, since we got three episodes.
Mhm.
Probably won't try to do a. We I gave up a long time ago on trying to do like a scene by scene
Oh, right.
breakdown. It always feels. I
Mhm.
suspect when I have done that, it feels like I'm reading the whole show from notes. Um,
Yeah.
but with three episodes, we don't want to be here all night, so we're mostly just going to talk about the things that stood out to us, what we think about this, how it compares to other as far as, because it's a little new, it's a little different than Star Wars we've gotten before,
Yeah.
especially on TV. So um, we definitely will talk about all those things, but just quick thoughts. What did y'all think about the show?
You go first, DB.
Uh, I liked it. My one issue is episodes 1, 2, and 3 should have been episode 1.
Completely agree.
I think that's you could have. I don't think you could have even split it in half into 2 episodes. I think you needed that whole arc, which is a testament to a lot of the shows that are out right now, where people say, "Wow, get through to episode 3 and you're really going to like it." That's ridiculous.
You shouldn't have to do that.
We should be hooked from the very beginning. Now, granted, I was hooked from the very beginning on this because this is a very dark, adult orientated Star Wars. So
Mhm.
I was kind of hooked on, like, this is something we've never seen.
Yeah. What about you, Lunar Girl?
I like the darkness because it balances out all the brightness that we see with Baby Yoda and Rose's favorite porgs and all the happiness. This is dark. This is serious. This is more of like a dramatic Star Wars. I do enjoy that balance. I don't enjoy the super short episodes. Like DB said, you very easily could have mashed it all together and gotten maybe an hour and a half,
You wouldn't have even needed that. You could have done an hour and 10, hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You could have done all three. The story from all three of those episodes could have been pressed into an hour and 15 minutes.
Exactly. It was the first 2 episodes were slow. The third one was very exciting. The negative is that you have to get past the first couple of episodes to get to the third. But the positive is that everything is laid out and explained for you so that you're not wondering like what's going on. Like you know exactly what's going on because the story, the first 2 episodes really spelled everything out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I like what they did. I mean, I will just say right now, like as far as production values, this is the best thing we've gotten Star Wars TV yet.
Yeah.
Now, from what I've seen so far, I think Mando season 3 is going to be pretty up there.
Oh, I can't wait.
Because Favreau is one of the guys that Gilroy that's doing Andor is more of an old school filmmaker, where Favreau's pushing the technology forward, and it's only going to get better and better each time they use it, and so I think that, but those two shows I think are distancing themselves from the rest of the pack now. I still feel like I've seen a lot of people heralding this as the new best Star Wars show, a live action show, and I'm like, it could be, but like so far it has. I mean, this is my gripe with it. 3 episodes in, I don't. How many episodes total? Is this a 12?
12.
I think it's a 12.
Okay.
I think
my only gripe, or my big gripe with it at this point, is that 3 episodes in and it's done nothing for Star Wars lore. It has created nothing new. And so that would be my major gripe with it.
Right.
But what it has given us is good. It's got a lot of I know Gilroy was like, I'm not doing fan service and all this, but it
Mhm.
depends on what you think fan service is. The
Yeah.
fact that there are lots of old ships and things seen around, like that's enough for me. Like I consider
Mhm.
that to some extent to be fan service. Like
Especially
um,
seeing the Republic dropships
yes,
refitted,
yes,
seeing them coming down was like, I would consider that a service to me, seeing them. So
yeah.
Yeah.
We've got
I do like
Amanda in the chat.
oh hey Amanda. I do like our new droid. We got a new droid, and
Mhm.
the new droid is fit into the Star Wars Disney Plus intro,
All right.
B2 Emo. So I kind of like his name. It's kind of cute.
Yeah.
Emo droid.
I want to know the story behind naming him. It's got to be an ode to somebody.
Yeah.
The
To
inclusion of the
Emo.
droid was actually, I thought, was pretty cool because we all we know of Cassian and droids is K2SO and
Yeah.
how he
Yeah.
reprogrammed them, and now seeing B2 Emo, it's almost like he creates these droids to be a bit of his conscience,
Mhm.
a bit of his speaking from reality,
Mhm.
almost. There's
I
a
don't think he
lot of
created
parallel.
him though.
No, he was definitely adjusted, I would say.
He was
He was.
adjusted. Yeah, I'll agree with that.
So I really think I think he tinkers with droids and kind of gives them a bit of character that maybe he feels in his own character is
Right.
missing.
Well, and we've had two sides of this now, and I'm a little disappointed they didn't go more into this.
Mhm.
Where we have Din Djarin, whose family was killed by droids
Right.
Yeah.
during the Galactic Civil War,
Mhm.
and then you have Cassian now, whose family they were separatists,
Yeah.
who should be pretty comfortable with the idea of droids.
Mhm.
Right.
So I thought maybe they would go a little more into that. And, they showed us his planet. I don't think they necessarily gave us a lot of what actually happened there.
Other than
Mhm.
it used to be a giant mine.
Right. Did the Empire mine it? Did the Separatists mine it?
Right.
And I will say I've got a question. I'm wondering if it goes deeper or if I'm looking deeper than it
Mhm.
really is. But the ship that crashes down on Canary,
Mhm.
we find the guys that are laying outside wearing gas masks, yellow
Mhm.
around their face, wearing separatist logos. Um,
They were
but
obviously poisoned because all of them are yellow.
so and the yellow and the poison gas
Mhm.
dioxis being the first thing that comes to mind. Separatists used to use the dioxis all through the Clone Wars.
Mhm.
But then when we see Marva come on, she speaks of a Republic ship in orbit and how these guys killed a Republic officer. Um, but yet he's wearing separatist um, regalia. I don't think this to be some sort of goof. Um, Wondering if this was right around the turn of the Empire, Palpatine pulling some strings with whatever's going on with that gas
Yeah,
ship.
based on his age, I mean, it has to be right at the end of the war.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right before the rise of the Empire.
Because unless they decide to change it, Cassian is born 26 years before the Battle of Yavin.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So, that puts him at like, depending on, I mean, they keep waffling on how old Luke was. They've waffled on
Right,
that several times, but like, should put him somewhere between 6 and 8 years old.
right,
Mhm.
Um, so now I don't necessarily know if I don't know how old he's supposed to be when we see him picked up. There's the whole
right,
line from Rogue One. He's been in this fight since he was 6 years old, which I
right,
thought, and I really thought that's where they told us that they were picking the story up was there.
right.
I don't know that I buy that kid as a 6-year-old.
Not
Mhm.
really. Not
I
really.
would say more like a,
Not really.
10 to 12-year-old, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
that's
can
what I
even go 8 or 9, but I think
yeah,
any younger than that's a little bit of a stretch,
Mhm.
especially since he's got a little sister next to him for
right. So, I don't know. I think they muddied the waters a little bit on Cassian's background, on
Mm-hmm.
what happened to him. Like,
A little bit.
how old is he when he's picked up? Because if you can't have him be too old, because the war
Mm-hmm.
should have already been over.
Right.
And separatist and republic shouldn't even be in the lingo at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so I was a little confused by that opening scene. And like I said, I hope it's not just a goof.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is, there's several ways to look at this. It's like everybody wants, oh well, this person's going to make a Star Wars film because they love Star Wars. They've loved it since they were a kid.
Mhm.
Well, Ron Johnson, that's Ron Johnson, right? Ron
Mm-hmm.
Johnson made, whether you love it or hate it, the most divisive Star Wars movie ever made. Well, in
Mm-hmm.
this show, we've got someone who's not a Star Wars fan.
Right.
Like,
Right.
he's just not versed in Star Wars making this show. And so this is at the point where you really hope someone. I don't have a lot of faith in the story group. I feel like the story group has done very little to keep continuity in the
Yeah.
films and shows. And I don't really know what their purpose is at this
Mm-hmm.
point. And so I feel a little bit like, if somebody wasn't watching over his shoulder, that there might be some goofs.
Oh yeah,
Right.
and they're already talking about him because Cassian's in Rogue One. He apparently fought with the Separatists.
Right.
So picking him up from Kenari when they're doing other than fighting Separatists, with his blow dart,
Mm-hmm.
did he really? Did we go any further than that? So
Yeah.
there's already some talk that they've stepped and squashed on that Rogue One lore.
Mhm.
Or is it, that there also it remains to that it could be just one of those. The story in Rogue One was kind of just something that he was saying at the point in time,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
so we don't know.
Well, I'm assuming that the 6 year, the I've been in this fight since 6 years old. I'm going to assume that's when his father was killed.
Right.
Is that's where I initially go with that. And so I am curious. I don't know if they've muddied the water, or Star Wars is never afraid to do the whole from a certain point of view thing.
Right.
Right.
So,
Yep.
like, when he said I've been in this fight since 6 years old, what did he really mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
Was he a soldier, or was he just like his family was caught up in the fight when he was 6 years
Mhm.
Right.
old?
Right. Right.
So I don't know. It's one of those things. Like, I hope they give us something. Otherwise, I'm always going to go, man, that's a weird scene because it doesn't
Yeah,
make any sense.
Yeah.
hang in there.
And did like I was talking to DB about it. Did Marva kill the people on the ship? Is Marva part of the Separatists? Or is she just dressing like them because she's the rebels who aren't called rebels yet? They're still in the midst of forming everything. They're not an established group yet in Star Wars lore.
I
So
very much think she's a scavenger.
That's my
right.
scavenger,
I think
smuggler,
she's just
black market.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's worried. She saw this ship go down. She's racing in to get what she can before the next ship shows up.
Yeah.
So,
that makes total sense in my head. Yeah.
So that's pretty much. I wouldn't think anything. Read anything into it beyond that at this point.
Right.
In fact, I think that this. I don't know if I got a real good feeling for exactly what all goes on this planet where they're at. For this
Yeah.
Right.
It's definitely kind of a backwater planet, and we get the idea. There's quite a bit of smuggling and stuff kind of coming and going through there.
Yeah, and most of the parents are dead. It's like Lord of the Flies,
Right. Yeah, no, I think with the Kenari, I think that the children are a remnant.
Yeah.
I think that we hear a story a little later. The only problem with getting 3 episodes at once is it kind of runs into one thing, and so I'm not sure which episode is in, but we hear, we do get a conversation where they talk about everybody on that planet was wiped out.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I very much think the children were just a remnant. So it is going to be interesting. Like, we don't know what happened to the rest of the children. And I saw a comment. I think Amanda said something earlier about his sister possibly being one of the Imperials.
Mhm.
That could certainly be possible.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure where they're going to go with that.
Yeah.
Because we're actually, we're still getting. When they first announced this show, I really thought it was going to be a little bit earlier, or that we were going to get some stuff that was a little bit like in between. Because we're 5 years before. Which, the cool thing about being 5 years before is there's a whole lot of really cool characters that can show up very organically.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we can meet you. We know that they've already, or supposedly cast their Ezra Bridger and Sabine.
Yeah.
Like, these are characters that could be introduced in this.
Yeah, the Mandoverse is
Absolutely.
going on all around this time period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And including some of the other things. The films are with not just films, but the games that are out with the Fallen Order. The
Yes.
new game coming out is taking place between, I think, 5 and 10 BBY. So
Yeah,
Mhm.
they
know,
really
Kes-
like they're missing the boat if they don't get
yeah.
the guy that plays Cal Kestis
Oh, absolutely.
into a
And
live action role. He's a
there was a
great
lot of
actor.
talk about recasting him as somebody else. The guy that did the mocap and the voice is the perfect person to play that
Mhm.
character.
I mean, he's a fantastic actor.
Yes.
I don't know if have y'all seen him in anything?
Yeah. He was in Gotham.
He was in Gotham.
Yes. I love this character in that.
He plays
Very
the
wild.
Joker. He plays
The
he
Joker,
wasn't
yeah.
really the Joker because for
Right.
some reason they couldn't. DC didn't want him to use the
Yeah, they were limited,
use
and
the
that's why it
word,
ended up
but-
ending.
right.
Yep.
But he's a fantastic actor, and they're really missing out if they don't put him in a live action.
Yeah.
role.
Yeah.
And the connection to it, especially the fact that this new game coming out, I really think it's going to happen. Probably in the Mandoverse, because then Mandalorian season 3 will be after the game releases. So
Mhm.
would make sense for him to come into that, or Ahsoka to show up.
Yeah, we're going to see. Like, I mean, we know Cassian becomes a Fulcrum agent.
Mhm.
We really should see Ahsoka in this series.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I hope so badly.
I will say that Disney has an issue with telling stories through flashbacks.
Mhm.
I will say it was done okay.
This one was done better.
Yeah, it was definitely better than sitting in the back of the tank having a back. But at the same time, like, why don't we just tell a story real quick of how he was a kid and then jump to real time?
Right.
It is a valid option.
For some reason, just using exposition to catch you up has become a bad thing. It's like, heck, you could have started this show off with you could have done an old school Star Wars crawl to tell us about how he got off the planet. Like,
that would have made sense, though.
And then you wouldn't have anybody saying, "This isn't Star Wars." Yeah, it does. It has a crawl. Come on.
Everybody needs to put their own artistic flair on things, except it's the same flair. It's just like different ways now. Like back to Tanks in the first 3 episodes of Book of Boba Fett. We've got flashbacks in the first 3 episodes of Andor.
yeah. Did you catch the guy yelling for Bacta in the?
Yes.
I've been getting into a habit of watching these shows with the subtitles on, because there's a lot of things that you can pick up. Names and such. And when Kelly was watching earlier, I'm like, watch this part. You got to watch this part.
Mm-hmm.
Back to see, it's never far.
The biggest thing I was amazed with these 3 episodes, I still don't know who says shit where. And that's the biggest thing everybody's talking about. And I didn't find it.
Yeah.
Like, I have no
I don't even
idea.
remember where it
Everybody's
is
like,
now.
"Oh, Star Wars cursed," and
You
honestly,
know,
didn't even hear it.
it's one of those things. It's like, yes, you have curse words that are
Mhm.
built into the Star Wars universe. You could have just
Right.
done that. Um,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like this kind of thing is not something new. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
you go all the way back to Empire Strikes Back
Yeah.
and Han Solo with the and I'll see you in hell.
Right.
Like, okay.
That's one
um,
of the best Star Wars quotes ever,
it is like, yeah, I mean, but like back then we don't talk about that one, but it's like this is not really any different. Like that,
Right.
Mhm.
this doesn't pull me out of Star Wars the way it would some things.
Sith
Right.
Care Bear explained it perfectly, where he's like, "This is, these original films or documentaries, and they're just really translating Galactic Basic into
Mhm.
English, and shit might have been the word that fit best translatable."
Right. I mean, that's the thing. We're already accepting a world where we hear all these different races and species
Mhm.
across many planets all speaking the same language. We're already
Yeah.
accepting that. So like,
Right.
you know, the language thing because they also um somebody gets called a bastard in this one too in
Yeah.
one of these
Oh.
episodes. So it's
Yep.
like so it's I don't know. I know it bothers some people, but
Mhm.
I think that's a very I mean I get it, but I think that's a pretty minor
Yeah.
I've heard
minor
worse.
thing. Right. It's like I don't necessarily want to like start hearing that in every one of
Of
my Star
course.
Wars
Yeah.
shows or
Let's.
Yeah.
episodes, but like, once, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
In context, it worked.
Yeah.
It's not oozing curse words, so.
So
Um.
what did y'all think about the just characters in general? Because like we see a little bit of Cassian.
Mhm.
But I overall like I think the series is gonna be fine, and I want to make it very clear that I did enjoy the show because
Mhm.
Yeah.
it does sound like I have a lot of gripes, but
Mhm.
in reality I do actually like the show.
Right.
But 3 episodes in, I'm kind of going like, is there gonna be a story, or any of the characters gonna have arcs?
Right.
Like
Right.
we
Right.
already introduced a bunch of characters that are going to get no growth, that they're already
Mhm.
Yeah.
gone from the story,
Yeah.
and we
Are
spent
they
three
gone, or what's
right,
going
we
on?
spent 3 episodes building those characters. Are we getting them back at some point, or did we
Well,
spend
we're
Yeah.
three
not getting
episodes
Tim back.
introducing two characters that we yeah, no, we're not getting the one guy back. Only because
Tim got
unless he
what
was
he deserved.
unless he was a secret Jedi and he comes back as a force ghost.
Right.
Tim got what he deserved. I didn't like him. He was a jerk. Bix, I kind of liked her, but for as careful as she is, she obviously tells whoever she has a crush on everything about herself. And it's like, girl, you can't do that. Like, everybody knows you don't do that. So she talks too much when she loves people. Um, Marva, I can't help it. I look at her and I'm like, ooh, Aunt Petunia. Like I can't help it. She's always gonna be Aunt Petunia.
Yeah.
But I like her. I like her. She's got charisma. I like the way she stood up to, the the cops. Um, that's basically all I've gotten attached to.
Yeah.
Character wise, I think so far we're getting really. I'm hoping some of them stick around and we find a
Mhm.
way to bring them into this. Really strong characters. Seeing Cassian from Rogue One and where he is now,
Yeah.
you really see like him, you know, losing pieces of himself as he's going through and doing these
Yeah.
things, especially in the beginning. Taking out those two the corpos that were trying to rough him up. That you do see that glint of remorse, but
Mhm.
then turn to doing what he had to do.
Mhm.
So I'm really excited to see Stellan Skarsgård as Luthen. He's kind of like the money backer of you know of all of these rebel
Yeah, I
doings and
can't wait
he's
to know more
side with.
about him.
So
Yeah,
I can't wait.
he's gonna be good.
yeah,
but like some of these characters, like I get the idea that Bix is already like sort of secretly involved with a rebel cell.
Right.
Yeah,
So I think we will see her again. I'm just
I think
not
so
sure about
too.
anybody else. Um, and I liked a lot. They did a lot of good stuff. A lot of the costuming was good in this. I think overall, just it was a step up from what we've gotten. I did
Mhm.
think it was really weird when they come and unhandcuff Bix. The two guys,
Yeah.
one of them is wearing a hoodie.
Yeah. Right.
It looks like an Adidas hoodie.
Right.
Yeah. We can't
Like,
blame this
right.
stuff on
Guys,
2020
run out of
anymore, you
jackets.
know?
It's like turns out I've got several Star Wars cosplays
Wow.
just sitting in my
Right?
closet.
Oh, mine says Star Wars.
Wearing one now.
I'm cosplaying as that guy.
Um,
Oh,
but
Yeah.
I think we'll get some of the characters back. I mean, I certainly think we're gonna get the droid back, and
I think we'll get
yeah.
Marva. She'll
we'll get
probably. I
Marvel.
Oh,
don't think she's
definitely.
done.
Mhm.
Definitely Bix. I mean, she's definitely coming through.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
far as the rest of them, I'm not quite sure.
I know. Like the lead guy in the, I don't know, the industrial digger place. I
Oh, his
didn't
buddy
really,
Bex, or yeah, not Bex.
you know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, the one he owed money to.
Yes, yes. And I'm like looking like, was he from the planet with Cassian as well? Like he kind of fits the look, but
Yeah, I think the indication is that he's the only one from there,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what I got out of it.
and like he takes Marva's last name.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
So yeah, I'm curious to see who they're going to bring back. Now, talking about the guy, the friend that he owed money to, that was one of the coolest moments in the episode.
Mhm.
The ship when he changed their ship
Right.
to the big chunk of metal, whatever
Yeah.
it was.
Definitely
Yeah.
wild.
Mhm.
What did y'all think about the leader? What are the name? What is the name of this police force? I keep forgetting it.
The crap.
I can't remember it. It's all right.
Yeah.
Whatever they are, what did y'all think about the leader?
Definitely I think he's in way over his head. He's great behind the office, and I think he wants to make a name for himself.
Yeah.
That's
and
what it seems
and
like.
be and meanwhile his supervisor is very much in tune to the governor is about to take control,
Mhm.
or have taken control of the systems, where they're going to be using the security firms, the corporate security, the corporate mercenaries. They're going to
Mhm.
use everything in their power to keep control over this galaxy, the
Yeah.
Empire. So it makes sense to see this corporate security firm being used to quell something.
Mhm.
And I think I think the young assistant there is looking to try to use that position to get him in good with the Empire.
Yeah, that's exactly what it seems like.
One day I'm gonna figure this out so it won't cover your face, Kelly. But I wanted to put this
I'm not
comment up here.
worried.
So Amanda's talking about the same person we were talking about.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I'm curious to see where he ends up. The thing is, though, the thing about him, he strikes me as a coward. He's a
Yes.
pencil
He
pusher
is
that
a
had no
coward.
place on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure what his future is,
Mhm.
unless they're setting up him to try to be, some sort of revenge
Mhm.
plot for him to get back at Cassian for this event.
I'm
Yeah.
curious how he's going to play it out going back, and having his supervisor coming back from these
Mhm.
grand things where you're like everything's fine, and meanwhile your assistant, instead of writing up some silly report, made things a ton worse.
Right.
And got a ton of people killed, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's and I mean, because he told him, don't
Mhm.
just let it go.
Yep. Let
Yeah.
it go. Don't
And,
bother with it. Those
yeah,
guys sucked anyway.
Mhm.
But he reminded me. Have you seen Band of Brothers?
Yes.
the beginning of Band of Brothers, they have the guy that's the, you know,
Yeah.
the
So
officer that's going to be
Sobel.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Sobel's
just
character.
has no business on a
Mhm.
battlefield at all, and
Right.
that's
Yeah.
what he kind of made me think of.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially when he gives that speech where he stands up and starts talking and realizes he's way out of his depth here for
Yeah.
speaking to
Mhm.
people. So this tiny little fly is gonna kill me here. Um but yeah, it really comes out when he gives that speech that he's in over his head. He was
Right.
all about it, and now it's time to put up or shut up, and
Yeah.
he's not quite sure what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what do y'all think about the portrayal of Cassian? Like, as far as Cassian from here through Rogue One, like, is this we're 5 years before the events of Rogue One, roughly.
Right.
So, um, what did y'all think? I mean, is it consistent? Is he not being a rebel yet? Is he far enough removed from the character that we see, or is he just already that character?
Well, we were talking at the end of the third episode. You see him looking at the sunset flying away on Canary, and you see him looking at the sunset when he's flying away from, I don't even know what planet he's on right now. Do you know what planet he's on right now?
No, it's
Ferrix.
I didn't pick it
Ferrix.
up.
Are we
Ferrets?
on Ferrix?
I don't know.
they keep giving us new planets. It's making
Yeah.
it harder to
Oh,
remember
I can't keep track
where
of it.
everybody is.
So the dual sunsets.
Ferrix.
The first one, he's leaving his childhood behind.
Mhm.
The most recent one, he's about to leave this life behind. He's going to now change into who we know in Rogue One.
Yeah.
I did like at the very end when we're seeing that same sequence, is we're seeing him as a child
Mhm,
flying off into the sunset in his face,
mhm.
barely escaping the Republic, coming
Yeah.
down. Then we see him as an adult now doing the same
Mhm.
thing, the bright light in his face, escaping by the skin of his teeth. And then finally we see that once again in Rogue One, only he didn't escape.
Yeah.
So it was kind of seeing there. I don't think he's really where where he is in Rogue One yet. I think he's
Yeah.
still he's been doing everything for himself pretty
Mhm.
much,
Right.
making money and that kind of thing. He's not been in it for a fight, I don't think.
Yeah.
Other than, bribing imperial officers in order to steal their stuff and sell it.
Like when
So
when he killed the guards from the brothel, the expression on his face and how he carried himself made it seem like this is the first time he ever killed somebody.
I don't know. I think he's killed before when we see him there. I just think
I don't know.
it's that heat of the moment where he
Mhm.
thought he was getting in and out, and he might have. I think it's him realizing that he might have screwed up this time because he was
Yeah.
out there looking for his sister, and he might have said too
Mhm.
much, and this is where it led to.
Yeah,
Right.
I think I would have to. I would have to agree. I don't think this is the first time he's killed.
Right.
And I say that simply because either he's killed before or Cassian Andor is a psychopath.
Well,
Because to stand over the second guy and let him
yeah,
plead for his life before he shoots him is,
Right.
that's
you
pretty
know,
cold.
that's pretty cold.
Yeah, yeah,
I took it
definitely.
as, he's arguing with himself. Do I kill another guy? I just killed this guy. I didn't mean to kill this guy. Should I kill this guy? So I took it as like he's got an inner battle going on.
We've talked about this on the Escape Pod, Brady, Don, and I, where what we'd like to see for Star Wars. We do like our smoking section, and that's come up a couple times in our Patreon videos only,
Mhm.
and what we'd like to see in Star Wars. And we've always led to that darker side, to see the darker side of the Empire, to see Imperial units doing something, but to see the darker side of Star Wars. There's a war going on,
Yeah.
war that lasts for a long time. So we've always been, we've kind of said that we'd like to see that the seedier, gritty side. And
Mhm.
like I said, we woke up at 3:30, turned it on
Yeah.
by 4, and
Mhm.
at 4 a.m. I'm like, oh my, I'm awake. Like
Mhm.
this is something completely different.
Yeah.
This is probably the darker stuff we've been talking about, and it
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm all for seeing the darker stuff. I know some people
Definitely.
get the idea that I don't want to see the darker stuff because I keep saying that Star Wars is for families, but
right,
like my argument has always been you get people that say I want dark Star Wars, and it's like, but what
Mhm.
do you mean?
right,
Like what do you know? There's a lot of that's a broad category
right,
there. Like I
Yeah.
love Rogue One. Rogue One is the darkest Star Wars movie, and I love it.
yes,
It's fantastic. I don't necessarily. There's a lot of death, a lot of hard stuff going on there. We're getting the same thing here, obviously.
yeah,
I don't know that for me, I don't know that I would like to see Star Wars go much darker
Mhm.
than we're
right,
going now.
Yeah.
right,
Because it still kind of remains in a place where, yeah, it's not like as fun and jovial in some ways as The Mandalorian or something like
Mhm.
that.
right,
Although I think we're gonna get some a little darker, some darker moments in The Mandalorian coming up. I think
yeah,
we're gonna get some stuff specifically with the Mandalorians,
Oh,
um,
definitely.
yeah,
with Bo Katan in particular. I
Yeah.
think
yes,
she's gonna lose it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it's so when I say I want it to still be for families, like, yeah, obviously I don't necessarily mean something that you can show your 3-year-old.
Mhm.
right, right,
Like, yeah, most Star Wars you can. I mean, but like honestly, I mean, there's things even in the originals that might scare a 3-year-old.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Like,
absolutely,
when I say Star Wars is for families, I'm talking, your 9, 10-year-old kids and stuff.
Padawans.
Yeah, and um, you know, my kids enjoyed it. I'm really anxious to get their take and do a Padawan report episode with them about it because
Right.
yeah,
my
definitely,
oldest was like, I kind of hated that Tim died, and I was
Really?
like, really? And she was like, well, I didn't mind his character. I said, well, but
Mhm.
he's the one that ratted Cassian out, and she was like, is Cassian a good guy?
ooh,
And it was
ooh,
like,
Mm.
I.
ooh, ooh,
Wow.
good
And
move,
so, right. So it's like at this point, she's not wrong.
She's
right,
Um,
not.
so I'm really anxious to dig a little deeper on that with the
Mhm.
kids because it's always interesting to see how they're perceiving things. And she's looking at it and going, he steals, he lies, he
Uh-huh.
cheats, he killed people.
Huh?
Not
yep,
just killed people in cold blood.
yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's definitely a different perspective than I had on it. And
I mean, it's
Right.
been very open with even with the original trilogy that the
Mhm.
Empire was willing to go to great lengths to keep control. I mean, they blew up a planet, and killed millions of people on
Right.
a planet. So, um, it's interesting to see the darker side of war when it
Mhm.
comes to the rebel side.
yeah,
They were the rebels. They were if you insurrectionists. These people that are trying to stage this large coup to take over, to take out a Sith Lord that's running everything.
Right.
So they're going to have to go to some crazy lengths
mhm,
to get there. So it's interesting to see that line blurred in Star Wars to
Mhm.
where, you know, we know they're fighting for the good guys in the end, but boy, are they doing some bad guy stuff.
yeah,
And it's
Yeah.
and it's like you hear in the trailers where it's where the people they don't like to admit that they need.
Mhm.
And that's true, that only so much can be done straight up. All of this stuff has to go on in the background before
yeah,
you can get some Mon Calamari cruisers and some frigates to come and have a space battle.
right.
Mhm.
You have to level those odds. So I'm very
Right.
interested to
But
see
yeah, no, that's
what's
all. It's all. I mean, that's really the selling point for this show is that it's going to dig into this because it's yes, Star Wars is a good versus evil story,
Mhm.
yeah,
but like in war, like good people do bad things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because that's war. It's when
That's exactly what it is.
when the U.S. fought the Germans in World War II, we bombed cities to rubble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whole cities full of people.
Yeah. Full of them. Yep.
Because it was the only way to stop
Yeah.
what was
Yep.
happening. And so it's like, but it's like you look at it and you go, there's nothing noble about bombing a city full of civilians.
Mm-hmm.
No.
But it's war. It's ugly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I'm curious this character Luthen. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a Stellan Skarsgård fan, so
Yeah.
I've liked his work. So him taking this role, I think he can. It'll be cool to see him being with the people like Cassian, these people with a certain set of skills,
Yeah.
as well as rubbing elbows with Mon Mothma that we see later in the Senate before the Senate
Mhm.
is completely dissolved.
I'm looking forward to seeing her.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of talk that, it's going to turn into the Mon Mothma show and not be about Cassian Andor. And honestly, both characters very interesting. So if you wanted to split it down the middle, I'd be fine with that too, because
Yeah.
there's a lot going on.
Well, that's the thing is like, we don't, I mean, as far as this show, like, I think the real potential is not just on following Cassian. It's
Mhm.
that we keep saying we want to see the beginnings of the rebellion.
Yeah.
And we get little bit, like Star Wars Rebels does little bits of that, but they're a cell. They're a cell that's on their own. They're very small, doing their own thing. We don't
Right.
see the rebellion proper built.
Right.
We get little glimpses of it.
Yeah.
I want to see how it's built. I want to see how they get different systems to get involved. How do they get
Mhm.
the Mon Cala involved? How do they,
Mhm.
bring all these people in? I mean, I hope that we're going to see the spy network. Do you think we finally see Bothans?
Right. Crazy.
Like,
That would be interesting. That would be, because I mean, that's what Bothans were really known for, was the
spy network.
spy networks
Yeah.
and that kind of communications and messaging. So yeah, we could see a lot of the behind the scenes of this, where you have these little cells and these larger cells. There are people working to bring all of them together to
Mhm.
work
Right.
together.
Yeah,
So
because that's the thing in Rebels. It's like they're just a group that's just doing their own thing, trying to survive against the Empire.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Kind of unaware for most of the run of the show that there are other cells doing the exact same thing that they're doing, kind of pushing back.
right,
Mhm.
And so this is where we should get an inside look at how you unite these cells.
Right.
So even if some of the episodes are Mon Mothma heavy, like I'm not gonna complain. I want to see how they bring it all together to fight the Empire.
right. I
Right.
mean, that was the point of Rogue One, was giving us that prequel to Star Wars, that little bit on how they got the Death Star plans
Mhm.
Right.
and how they were going to try to take out the Death Star before it was built. So that they're very deep into all of the Empire's dealings at this point to be able to get that far in. So
Mhm.
yeah, that would be great to see where we go with that. And so far, you said first 3 episodes was a great story arc of a little bit of world building, a little bit of
Mhm.
drag. Maybe
Mhm.
the 30-minute episodes aren't so bad for that, but that's the problem, is that we should have been all in one and ending with now Cassian's leaving.
Yeah.
So that 3-episode start, I think, was more of a, we need to push these 3 out, otherwise they might not come back for the
I,
third.
I honestly think they had to put out all 3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I think that's why I think that's why the show got pushed.
Right.
Mhm.
One, I don't think it was originally supposed to release like one day separate from Rings of Power.
Right.
And
Right.
I don't think they necessarily wanted to do that. But I don't think they wanted that. That plan was to drop one episode on that
One.
day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that first episode, I think you'd have lost a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I myself get it, because a lot of the things that I like have very slow starts to it, because you need the description, you need the setting, you need to know everything that's going on. And then a couple chapters later, it'll start picking up. Just like
Right.
I needed the setting, I needed the history behind it. I need to know who all these people are, what is going on here. And now that I know, now it's picking up. So
Right.
I'm
I
pretty
guess,
happy with that.
yeah. No, I'm glad it's picking up, and I think it's going to be fast paced from here on
Mhm.
out.
Yeah.
But I'm just, it's not just Star Wars. We talked about this a little bit earlier when we were talking Rings of Power. It's,
Mhm.
and you're giving us this limited number of episodes, and
Mhm.
like, why is it taking so long for this show to where's the hook? If your
Yeah.
hook is 3 episodes in,
Mhm.
that's too far.
Yeah.
Like,
They
because
they really could
it
have
I
combined it
think
all
I
in one
think
episode.
DB said this earlier. Like, I don't want to go try to sell somebody on a show and say you just got to get through the first 3 episodes.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
It's not a way to do it.
no, and so I appreciate that they are looking at it and going, "We'll put the first 3 episodes out so that we
Mhm.
get far enough in." But like, there should be a hook in the first episode.
Yeah,
It might be the
Yeah.
who
end.
wrote this and said this is episode 1, this is episode 2, this is episode 3, and who looked at it in the editing room and said, "Yeah, we could sell these as standalone episodes because you can."
Yeah, because you can. And also, and I hate saying this because it's like it's crossing the fandoms. You don't cross the streams, but I'm getting spoiled with, 1 hour shows of House of Dragons. I'm getting very spoiled with Rings of Power being over an hour. And now I have 3 episodes that could be 1 episode. And then you say, "Well, there's 12 episodes, so is it really just 4 or 5 regular-sized episodes?"
Probably.
Like,
Right. That's the
tell
thing is like
me."
I would just assume it be 7 or 8 episodes
Mhm.
with a bit longer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
give me an hour and 15 minutes, you know.
yeah.
Don't split it all up so you can say this one's got more episodes than anything. Nah, he just added a couple commercial breaks
You
in,
just
you
chopped
know.
it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's the same as the others, you just chopped it up so it looks like it's 12 instead of 6.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, even Marvel has largely done shorter episodes, but is
Mhm.
more willing, seems more willing to, like, if one needs to go 50 minutes, it can go 50 minutes.
Right.
Hawkeye was a good example of that
Yeah.
where
Yeah,
they
so I
dragged
agree with
out a
that.
few of the episodes, pushed an hour because the
Mhm.
storyline kind of dictated that.
And to
Yeah.
me, that is the advantage of a streaming platform where you're not having to have a certain amount of commercial
Right.
breaks and things, is that
Mhm.
if you can do everything that needs to be in the episode in 35 minutes, great.
Right.
Yeah.
But if the next episode needs 50 or 60 minutes,
Mhm.
do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do it. Right.
And the Marvel stuff on Netflix was a good example of that,
Mhm.
where
Yeah.
they weren't afraid to just the episode can't the numbers were all over the place and how long episodes were.
Yeah.
Some were only like 35, 40 minutes, and some were a full hour.
Mhm.
And to
Yep.
me, that is the big benefit of the streaming platform, and some of the studios don't seem to be taking good advantage of that.
Right. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you have a half-hour show on TV. It can't be longer than 22 minutes in order to squeeze in the
30
commercials.
minutes, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
if you've got a 30-minute window show, you're 21, 22 minutes of TV.
yep.
And
So,
that's what Disney Plus is doing here with, or at least on the Star Wars side, they're doing 40-minute episodes. That's a 1 hour TV show.
right.
Yeah.
They've hemmed themselves into that old model, even though they're not having to show the commercials, and they
Yeah.
seem to just be determined to keep them that length. And I don't
Mhm.
really understand the point.
Right.
Right.
It almost seems like there's a reliance also on the fact that we've already bought the service,
Mhm.
where when you're pushing out content on TV, you're looking for that viewership during those time slots to dominate in order to make a difference and to make your money. Where in this case, in these streaming services, we've paid for it before we get the content.
Yeah.
So, how much does that fall into play?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a tricky one because they want to sustain the numbers,
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you've paid for it, but they do want you to come back and pay again next month.
Right.
But
Yeah.
they're doing a lot. Like I think Disney is, I mean, Marvel, they're sacrificing theater dollars right now
Mm-hmm.
just to put movies on their streaming service faster.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because we're down to like a 45-day window
Mm-hmm.
Right.
on these big blockbuster movies. 45 days later, it's going to be on Disney Plus.
Right.
And that used to be unheard of. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean,
you used to have to wait for, well, if it came out in summer, you'd have to wait until at least Christmas time in order to get it on a DVD.
Well, for a while, it was longer than that. It was like if it came out in the summer, you were going to wait till the next Christmas to get it.
Yeah, it was a year before you got to see it on a DVD.
Yeah,
you lucked out. Like we had $1.50 cinemas too, to where we could pop in and catch something about 4 months into its run.
Yeah.
The 90s were great. We got to watch all these movies about 2-3 months late just by going to the $1.50 cinema.
Right.
Well, that's what we had to do, you know, like you'd have to wait until they're pulled from mainstream cinemas to go to the dollar cinema, but you got to watch it like months in advance of when it would come out on VHS.
Yeah, it was that or wait until another 6 months
before. Not DVD, VHS.
Right.
Yeah, I saw a couple of theaters that had kind of, I don't know if any are still doing it. I think COVID messed a lot of stuff up, but there were some theaters that had bigger theaters that had actually started doing, like they had set aside one screen as like $1 theater.
Right.
That's really nice.
And that was something we talked about doing here. Like when I was in college, our theater closed when I was in college. And my grandfather, who was invested in all sorts of businesses, he was like, you know, he said, if I bought this theater, would you not go back to college? Would you stay home next year and help me get it running?
Right.
And that was part of the plan there, was to convert one of the screens to $1 theater. But like Regal Cinemas swooped in and bought it before we did.
Right.
So.
Right.
Of course, now they're filing bankruptcy, and
they're
been closed for 3 years now.
Their future is unknown.
Unknown.
Got him. This tiny little fruit fly that keeps.
It's only been an hour.
Those are the worst. I had some here on my desk earlier. I don't know where they came from.
No, I don't have food in here. There's one little fly. I just see him all of a sudden. He's like doing this in my eyes.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, what are y'all expecting from the show? Like, what do you want to see from the show going forward before we wrap up?
Going forward, well, I know we just saw 3 episodes, but it feels like I saw 1 episode. So going further, I want to see more action. I want to see, what are we doing? You know, like show me the transition of Cassian, you know, show me that transition from being this guy who's just, you know, skulking around, stealing things and selling things and scavenging things, to what is he when, you know, we get to him in Rogue One. I want to see that.
Right.
I would like to see more of Luthen's ship. I think
definitely. His ship was so hot. I want to see a Lego ship
up,
like
and
that.
then he sat in a Millennium Falcon-esque cockpit. I was like, I want to see more of this ship.
That was hot.
Yeah,
it's good stuff. I want to see. I mean, we're obviously going to see Cassian be connected to more of this Rebel underground. And Saw Gerrera, where he's in this. So
yes.
I'm excited to see him, to see where we're going. And I really want to see these 5 years are going to shape what Cassian is in Rogue One. And so there's going to be a lot of crazy stuff that's going to happen in order to make his character completely what it is in Rogue One. So, yeah, So I'm hoping we get more episode 3 content than episode 1 content for the rest of it.
Yeah.
That's
we
my
will.
only.
I think we have to. Like if we get into episode 4 and we have to go through a whole another series, because basically we did all this setup and then we threw it all out when he leaves there. So
Yeah.
I will be a little upset if we get to episode 4 and we have to do a whole nother round of like introducing characters, and like we're obviously got to introduce characters, but let's keep the story moving forward while we
Yeah.
do that.
Like it's almost like we already had the prologue. Let's get to
Right.
the meat and the potatoes now.
So, I mean, that's what I want to see. I just want to see the pace pick up from episode 3 and move forward. I really liked episode 3.
Mhm.
When the action finally kicks off in episode 3, it's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the anticipation leading up to it was done well.
Yeah.
To the point where they're scooting through the old furnace. Like we had built all the way up to everything's moving around. So it led up to it nice and then crescendoed perfectly.
Yes.
Yeah.
JV, we covered this. I'm not sure about the profanity being that much of an issue. As long as we're not dropping F-bombs and making a habit of it, I don't see that might be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to get upset over it one time. Like I hope that was it. I hope we move forward and
Right.
we do have some well used and known Star Wars
Tank
profanity.
Ferric, Voodoo, all of that
so
stuff.
let's just stick with that stuff and then move forward. Yeah.
And they're yeah, so let's hope that we can keep going with this flow. We've sped it all up. Let's keep going with that.
I
and
also
like Amanda
want
said,
to know,
espionage, more politics, that
Yeah.
those connections of the rebellion.
I also want to know what happened to all the adults. I mean, it was implied, kind of, sort of, but I don't want to see it in a flashback. Just let Cassian be there with like, some kind of a drink at a bar and tell us what happened to the parents. All the
Right.
adults. Just say it. We don't need another flashback.
Yeah, well, there were a couple things that kind of confused me. Some of the stories kind of wishy-washy. Like Luthen asked him, "Isn't that where mentions this place? Isn't that where your father was hung?" It's like, well, this is not the same planet. So,
Well, that's when he said his father was hung in the square of Ferrix.
Yeah, like what?
Where they're at right now. Well, they picked him up from Canary, and he was brought to Ferrix. And they said there are some continuity things that I don't think we would leave by the wayside. They've got to fill in there somewhere, but
yeah.
And how does he know all of this information about Cassian? Like, that has me hanging.
He didn't mention Bix, but I think Bix has already told him all about Cassian. That's my guess. Is I think she's already clearly very involved with a rebel cell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right.
It seems that way, and I think that's why Tim was so jealous. Is that I don't think it was just Cassian, that he just kind of attributed all of her disappearances to Cassian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Well, it's I'm excited. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Definitely.
I think that overall it was really good. I think that I said it at the start, production value wise, it's the best Star Wars we've gotten yet.
And it's dark. It's like for grown-ups, like kind of like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, ready to see where it goes. But I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up for the night. And
sounds great.
So Lunar Girl, where can everybody find you online?
I do the social media for the Sidebar Cantina podcast. You can find me on Twitter or on Instagram at Sidebar Cantina. Basically, I don't use any of my own personal social media anymore. So just find me through the Sidebar Cantina.
Nice.
All right. And DB, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at dragon_bud with 2 Ds, or on Wednesday nights where pants are optional. Shenanigans are guaranteed. On the Escape Pod, all things Star Wars, the Escape Pod, we'll be doing an Andor review, talking Star Wars with Mr. Allen from Press Play Streaming Studios. Wednesday, 7:05, live YouTube.
Woohoo!
Awesome. So you can find me, I think tomorrow night. I may be alone, but we'll see if Marisha hopefully will be feeling better. I'm going to be doing the episode 2 through 5 of She-Hulk.
Nice.
Because somehow we just never managed to do it. So I'm trying to do the middle episodes so we can do the finale by itself.
Right. Cool.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's interesting. It's a very different Marvel show.
Yeah.
Are y'all watching that one at all?
I got through episode 2. Just life got in the way, so kind of put on the back burner with the House of Dragons and Rings of Power.
Yeah.
Like, I'll get to it.
Yeah.
But not just yet.
All right. Well, thank you to Amanda and Nicole and Joker Voice for hanging out with us in the chat.
Woohoo! Thanks, friends.
Hector's in there lurking too.
Oh, and
Hector,
Hector Lorian. I forgot I did see him in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks to y'all for jumping in here and hanging out.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I always love having y'all on, and it was good to get y'all on and talk some Star Wars, and I appreciate y'all coming and doing that. After spending almost 2 hours talking Rings of Power with me just a little over an hour ago, so
it's a double feature night.
Yep.
But very appreciative of y'all for coming on with me. But you can find me running the Twitter account for this show at sci_fictionary. You can drop me a line at thesciencefictionary@gmail.com. You can find both of our podcasts as well as some articles and everything you would want to find on the Parsec Fan Awards at thesciencefictionary.com. And you can check out our podcast as well as the rest of the Red 5 Podcast Network at Red 5 Network on Twitter. All right, guys. It was great. And until next time, guys, may the Force be with you.
Bye, friends.
This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/Red5.